This morning, we're talking about the winners and the losers. Don't know your perception of who won, but you know who really lost? CBS. The moderators, if you watch that debate, it was unfocused. It was a free-for-all. It was a mess. Watch this.
Bernie, I was talking about I would like program. Senator Sanders.
If you get nominated, we'll be relitigating this all year.
Do what I asked.
Look, first of all,
Bernie, let me go. We'd ask respectfully if you would all please try to keep to the time.
So let's clear this up once and for all. Now,
has gotten funding
you've got people
from
believing
over
something that is
50
false.
billionaires.
New topic,
for this whole campaign.
Senator
I don't know where you got the impression.
If you could honor the rules of the debate, thank you.
Senator Sanders, you're allowed a quick response, and we would like to allow the other candidate.
Moderator, guys.
Senator Sanders.
Moderator, is my turn?
That is not how you do a television show. People talk one at a time. We're going to have a dramatic interpretation of
what happened.
Us doing that show last night as we introduce our next guest. So let's go ahead
bring
and
in Senator Tim Scott from the great
South
state
Carolina.
of South
Tim
Carolina.
Scott, good morning to you. How are you? What's happening down there?
Excuse me. Please recognize me. Please recognize me. Excuse me. I have my hand up. My name was mentioned. My name was mentioned. Okay.
Let's talk about everything that doesn't matter.
Good morning to you, Senator.
Tim, what'd you think of last night's debate? For me, I wanted them to focus more on the issues.
Yeah, I thought it was a hot mess. It was so embarrassing for the Democrat Party. No one on that stage was presidential. And frankly, the winner of the debate last night was simply President Donald Trump. Listen to Amy Klobuchar's praising of the First Step Act, and then watch how they denigrated each other. Steyer owned personal prisons, private prisons. They talked about Biden passing the 1990s crime bill. They talked about Bloomberg. They bombed Bloomberg on the stop and frisk policies. They praised the First Step Act passed by President Trump. They talked about African American home ownership up under President Trump. It was a really good night for Republicans, and it was an embarrassing performance that was patronizing to African Americans, pandering to African Americans, and pathetic performance from my perspective.
And Senator, your perspective is invaluable. Being from South Carolina, African American, in Congress, what does the African American community want to hear? Do they want to hear about reparations? Do they want to hear that it's harder to get a loan? Do they want to hear that through history it's been harder to get a job? You tell me.
Well, the bottom line is there's a reason why the rear view mirror is so small and the windshield is so big on the car. We want to focus on the future. I did a panel this month for Black History Month, and on the left and the right of the panel, they all said we need to focus on the future, economic future of this nation. It is one of the bright spots of the Trump economy is we're seeing the lowest unemployment rate within the African American community. But more important than that, Brian, you've seen people coming back to work. The long-term unemployed is now participating in the great comeback story. That's one of the reasons why the black participation rate, workforce participation rate, is up in the community. The issues that we care about as African Americans are the same issues that every other American cares about, and that's one of the reasons why the current approach of President Trump is everybody's in the same boat. What you saw on the stage yesterday was as if there were no white folks watching 7 white candidates talk about black people. It was the most remarkable performance. I can't imagine that on our stage. I would be embarrassed to have a conversation specifically about one race.
We were talking earlier. We've heard different numbers. What percentage of the Democratic Party in the state of South Carolina are African Americans? And do you think going into 2020, some of that percentage will vote for President Trump? He got 8% in 2016. What percentage do you predict nationally in 2020?
About 30% of the overall voters in South Carolina are African Americans. Probably 60% of the Democrat primary on Saturday will be African Americans. Trump had 8% in 2016. I'm predicting he will have at least 12%, a 50% increase coming President Donald Trump's way because his policies are percolating at the right time. It is really hard to deny the success of this administration.
During the administration of Michael Bloomberg, one of the policies was stop and frisk with the police. He was for that before he has started apologizing for it and saying that was a mistake. Nonetheless, Mayor Pete hit Bloomberg on that last night. Listen.
We let it get out of control, and when I realized that, I cut it back by 95%. and I've apologized and asked for forgiveness.
It was about profiling people based on their race. And I come to this with some humility because I'm conscious of the fact that there's 7 white people on this stage talking about racial justice. None of us.
Oh, wait a second. I know that if I were black, my success would have been a lot harder to achieve. And I know a lot of black people that if they were white, it would have been a lot easier for them. That's just a fact, and we've got to do something about it than rather just demagogue about it.
So, Senator, at the very beginning, he was talking about stop and frisk.
Yes.
How important is this particular issue as the people of South Carolina go to the polls on Saturday?
The fact that he is apologizing and then repenting and asking for forgiveness tells you that it's incredibly important to the people of South Carolina. What people want, African Americans, white folks, Hispanics, what we all want is a fair system, a fair chance to succeed. What you saw last night was really pandering and patronizing and trying to make up for the gaffes and the policies of the Bloomberg administration so that he's more marketable as for the presidential campaign. But we have to compare that and contrast it to what President Trump has actually done. One of the things that you have to focus on is a comparison of the two sides. Right now, the left looks like they have no other option other than to pander from reparations to the UBI, the universal benefit basic income of $1,000 to every American. You can't continue to give away what you do not have. And if it's going to cost 3 times the American economy, according to Amy Klobuchar, we're all in for significantly higher taxes.
Right. So let me tell you, okay, so I know where you stand on stop and frisk.
Right.
And by the way, African-American officers, 2 of which told me, Brian, when it comes up to stop and frisk, understand what we did. We thought the people in the minority communities needed the most protection. The goal wasn't to arrest minorities. It was to go where the crime was, to protect people in that area. And they were not just walking up to people, frisking them. They were walking up if they were suspected of having a firearm. So just for the record, for the law enforcement agents, most of which are minorities in New York City, that was the goal, even though Mike Bloomberg doesn't want to say that anymore. But real quick, Congressman Clyburn will be endorsing, we believe, Joe Biden in about 2 hours. What does that mean for Joe Biden?
Well, probably means an increase in African-American votes for Joe Biden. The truth of the matter is, 3 weeks ago, Brian, 3 weeks ago, Joe Biden had a 30-point lead in South Carolina. It is now down to 4 to 4.5 points. That says that Bernie Sanders has doubled his black vote in South Carolina, and that means that Biden now needs someone to come rescue him, and Jim Clyburn's endorsement will be part of that rescue strategy, but it won't make enough of a difference. If Biden does not win by 10 points or more on Saturday, Super Tuesday might be the collapse of the Biden campaign.
Senator, your prediction on South Carolina on Sunday morning, what's going to happen?
I think you'll see about 26% for Joe Biden. You'll see Bernie Sanders coming in around 20 to 23%, and Tom Steyer, who will be losing votes if, in fact, Clyburn endorses Joe Biden. You'll see him fall down from his numbers from 15 to probably 13 or 12. Those numbers will come from Steyer, not from Bernie Sanders.
That's interesting. And Senator, I have a sense in a few years you're going to be one of those people on the debate stage going for 2024, and I would not doubt it. And we're going to save this tape.
Well, let's get President Trump reelected.
Are you proud of our state? We have live shots in Charleston, live shots at Lizard's Thicket in Columbia, and live shots with you in Washington.
Ainsley, I tell you what, South Carolina's on fire, and thank God we are on fire for the Red Party.
And don't forget, we got Ainsley in New York.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Come home, Ainsley, come home.
All right. Tim Scott joining us today from the Russell Rotunda.
We're proud of you. Thanks, Senator.